Here's an interesting passage a lot of people will point to when they're talking about this topic and this concept. Would you read it?
In Jude 1:11 through 13, it says, "Woe to them, for they have gone in the way of Cain, have run greedily in the error of Balaam for profit, and perished in the rebellion of Korah. These are spots in your love feasts, while they feast with you without fear, serving only themselves. They are clouds without water, carried about by the winds, late autumn trees without fruit, twice dead, pulled up by the roots, raging waves of the sea, foaming up their own shame, wandering stars for whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever."
So while the book of Jude does speak to the effect of, like in verse 6, and angels who did not keep their own domain but abandoned their proper abode, he is kept in eternal bonds under darkness for the judgment of that great day. So if you guys remember last season, episode 2021, we talked about Tartarus, angels in chains. And we do see in Jude earlier on referring to those angels who sinned, did not keep their own domain, but now are chained up in darkness in a place under the earth. But here later in Jude, it's a different context, right? If you click one more slide over, when he's referring to wandering stars here, the context I would point out is for certain men have crept in unnoticed, who long ago were marked out for this condemnation, ungodly men who turn the grace of our God into lewdness, right? Lascivious grace, and deny the only Lord and God and our Lord Jesus Christ, Yeshua of Nazareth. Jude 1:14, after that passage we just read a moment ago, goes on to say, "Now Enoch, the seventh from Adam, prophesied about these men also, saying, Behold, the Lord comes with 10,000s of his saints." So what I wanted to point out here is that when in the context of wandering stars, would you go back one? When it's used as that phrase, wandering stars for whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever, the context of this passage is speaking about men, right? The feasts, the spots in your love feast who feast with you without fear, serving only themselves. It's talking about guys, like people.
Yeah, that
But
crept in to spy on, crept in, like it said long ago, marked out for this condemnation. See, these are rebellious men.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
But it uses this phrase in the Greek that's asteris planetae. Coincidentally, the same word where we get for the word that we use today, planet. It's the etymology. Asteris planetae is the same
Mhm.
word that it became the word planet of today. So late Old English, planetae in old astronomy, a star other than a fixed star, a star revolving in an orbit. From Old French planete, modern French, and directly from late Latin planeta, from Greek planetis, from asteris planetae. There it is, wandering stars. To wander, a word of uncertain etymology, but this is coincidentally the same word, and as Jude used here to describe those men who have wandered from the truth, right? Wandered from God and his path.
Yeah. So is this saying that those men are the planetes in the sky that we see, or is it just Jews is using a metaphor about the behavior of these men in regard to something that's considered a wandering star?
I would hold to the latter, and I think the further
Yeah.
definitions on the next slide would help define that for us as well. Because if we look at the Strong's Concordance,
Yeah.
that word planetes that was used there in as in Jude 1 was a wanderer, is what that
Mhm.
means. And even in the exhaustive concordance over here, it says from planos, a rover like a planet, or figuratively, an erratic teacher wandering. Interesting.
Interesting.
So see Greek planos. Would you read this or the latter
So
part
here
of it?
the cognate 4107, the planetes, properly a wandering star, a false teacher operating without moral compass and exploiting other aimless people, prompting them to also stray from God's circle of safety, which is also sound doctrine.
Aha. The word that became the word planet that is used by modern scientism to refer to those luminaries that they have deemed in a part of a heliocentric cosmology. That word is derived from a word that means prompting to stray from God's circle of safety. Fascinating, isn't it? Because
That's
that's
interesting.
exactly the deception that's going on. They're
Yeah.
straying from sound doctrine. Go ahead.
It actually, strangely enough, it reminds me of Cain.
Yeah.
You remember when
How
the
so?
Father said, "You'll be a wanderer upon the earth"?
That's
But
right.
then in the next few verses, it says he went and built a city, named it after his son Enoch.
Yeah.
Different Enoch than the prophet we've been reading about. But
Right.
it just makes me wonder that if it was more in line with this particular definition of that term, that he's not, since he left Adam and Eve who had sound doctrine,
Mhm.
that now he's a wanderer upon the earth, and doesn't mean that he's just wandering aimlessly like a vagabond, but that he is a false teacher. He was someone that's not teaching the ways of God, and which is why people have always asked me, they're like, Sean, how could Cain be called a wanderer upon the earth? But then it says he went and built a city, and that to build a city takes, you're not wandering, you're in a station, you're in a local area for a
see.
consistent amount of time.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Not a
So
nomad.
like, yeah, you're not a nomadic, and just you're not like Genghis Khan just roving around the earth and attacking people. So it been a lot more in line with this definition of the term, in my
Agreed.
understanding. Yeah.
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 And also, from Genesis to Revelation, we know that the Father is consistent in the language that he inspires, because the beast, the word is found in Revelation 13, this planetus, or the last word that we were looking at. And when it says, and he deceives those who dwell on the earth by those signs which he created to do in the sight of the beast, the second beast, right? Deceives. That word deceives was planetus.
Yeah.
So it's the same.
It's good.
Wandering. Yeah, planos, a deceiver. It's this is the root word for planetes, right? Leading astray, misleading, deceiving, wandering, a deceiver or imposter.
Oh, so wait a minute. So a deceiver, if this word planos is the root word for planetes and it means deceiver, how interesting is it that people have used the word planet and said that they're solid objects in a system that God didn't describe, to deceive us into not believing what God described?
Right.
That seems pretty ironic how
It
that
is.
happens.
It is. It's almost like he just ingrains and encodes, signs and little hints, breadcrumbs here and there for us to realize what's going on. I
That's
like it.
pretty amazing. Wow.
Mhm.
Okay.
A
So just
deceiver.
like when we talked about NASA last year, how the word NASA, it can mean nasha in the Hebrew, to deceive, but also in Sanskrit, NASA means destruction. And they're literally causing the destruction of people's faith by teaching them a cosmology, including planets, that leads them away from God's truth and the path that he has for them. So it's very interesting, these word choices by these institutions.
Agreed. Very much so.
I graduated from learning lies to seek the truth. Indoctrinated to be too blind to see the proof. I once was lost, but now I'm found, so I shine light. And everywhere I go is darkness, so I shine bright.